Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this 2 week theme of first and last, checking out bands' first album and latest album with Therion, checking out something from their latest album, which came out in October. It was called Leviathan 2. We're going to be looking at a music video that just came out about 4 months ago for the track from that album, Marijin Min Nar. So let's dive into this, see what Therion is bringing to the table, and how it compares to what they presented to us yesterday. Very theatric, full choir it sounds like. No, that's the full choir, and we have strings. Beautiful violin lines. So took the beginning of that choir line and used like the first two notes of it for the guitar, but went for a Phrygian vibe. Yeah, a little change there. Yeah. Harmonized guitar lead. Yeah, love the counterpoint between the vocals and guitar there. That descending grouping of five. They did it again. So if you'll recall, yesterday, and if you're interested about that, I'll put the link right there for the Therion one that we checked out yesterday. Um, I had mentioned how it was kind of a precursor to the modern ABAB outro concept, and I think they did it here again, which is just very cool to. It's very cool to see that this is something that they. And again, we're looking at two tracks out of an entire discography, right? So I think yesterday was 91, right? So what is that? Geez, like 30 years? I don't know why the 90s seem so far away. Yeah, like 30 years ago, and they're still utilizing the same structure, at least in some of their songs, which is just, it's a very cool thing. I don't even know if it was these two songs were chosen for that similarity. So it might just be a nice random element that got showcased in both of these tracks. But yeah, we have a series of sections that get repeated, and then we have. Well, we did have a guitar break. I don't know if we could call it a bridge per se. And I don't even remember where that was. I think it was between our two sections. Our first loop of sections, and then the guitar break, our second loop of sections, and then our outros. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of follows that same ABCDE concept that we heard yesterday, which is just, I mean, it's cool to see structure getting changed and using different ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, that was just neat to hear. Now, here's the other side of the thing, though. Yesterday we checked out Therion, and they were just straight metal. This was not. If this is their sound right now, this is a fantastic choice to use to show how the band has changed. There is still a metal underlying element here, but it's buried beneath theatrics and wider orchestration. We have a choir, we have strings, we have a couple of instruments that I don't know what they were. They were definitely plucked strings of some sort, but I don't know what the instrument was in particular. Um, and there was even some auxiliary percussion, like chimes, at one point, sparsely used. And there was another instrument, I think, also in the auxiliary percussion family. I can't remember what it was, but again, it was like used in one section. I was like, oh, that's neat, and I just can't remember what that was. But for a majority of this track, the guitars simply aren't present. Well, they're present. They're not on the forefront though. And we can hear this particularly well within the first minute and a half or so, especially once we get past the intro. We have the full choir. The choir trades off with a single higher vocalist. So you get like a full choir and then a solo vocalist and then the full choir. Um, and it creates this nice like overlapping element where the end of one phrase is still being held out while the beginning of the next starts. And then this gets traded off, I believe, to our lead vocalist, who just has a really nice full body chest voice rather than the growling stuff that we heard on yesterday's um, Morbid Reality. That's what it was. Um, while all of this is going on, we can hear the strings. We can hear some of the auxiliary percussion. We can hear that one plucked string instrument that I don't know what it is. Maybe it is one of the electric guitars with a bunch of effects on it. Technology is bonkers today. We can make anything sound like anything. But what I'm getting at is that there just isn't a traditional electric guitar metal sound in these sections until you really listen to what's on the fringe. And that's when you begin to hear the guitars, and they're just so quiet, pushed way out to the boundaries of the sounds. And that's when you kind of realize that it's not a metal song. I mean, it is, but it really isn't. And we actually have to remove all of the extra instrumentation push it aside and say, okay, guitars, go have fun. And that's when we get our guitar break. That's when we get our outro solo. The guitars are front and center, but they're in that placement because there is nothing else around them. This is not a bad song. I actually really enjoyed this. But this is the same sort of thing that I talk about when it comes to uh, symphonic metal, where you either get something where it's rock music with a violin that's just doing rock things, or you have symphonic music, orchestral music that happens to have an electric guitar in there at times to give it that bite. And balancing them is really difficult. And this certainly leans on the spectrum of just being a straight up orchestral track that happens to have electric guitar in it at times. Um, and I wish that there could just be a bit more balance. But like I said, the song's not bad by any means. I quite enjoyed it. I'm going to check out more Therion. This is much more suited to my tastes than the one we checked out yesterday. And I'm interested in this album. It just came out in October. I can't believe I missed it. I probably heard about it and I was like, I don't know who that band is, and maybe I just glossed over it. But yeah, Leviathan 2 is something that is now on my radar. Now, there's two important things that go on in here. One is going to be the choir work, and we have to talk about this. The song introduces itself with three male vocalists, um, and we kind of get these really nice delayed harmonies. Rather than all three vocalists starting immediately, they stack on top of each other. The first person holds a note, then we get another note, and then we get a third note, and they all hold them together. Beautiful opening, very theatric, and this gives way for a next layer of vocal range above that. And then we get a third level of vocal range above that. And it's just is this full bodied, massive choir. It's difficult to balance that with so many other instruments in here, and yet it gets done. The guitars get pushed out to the side, but other than that, it's really a really nice job on the engineering side of balancing everything that's going on while still giving the choir the front and center. Um, you know, the lead vocalist kind of gets pushed aside on this track as well. The choir does 75% of the vocals on this track. It's interesting how little of the metal band is used on this song. But anyways, the choir work is written impeccably, especially when you pair it with what the violins are doing. All the strings in that section, and their little runs, they're embellishing ideas. The times when, they're doing some nice counterpoint with each other, like just the pure layering between the choir and the strings, and listening to how they play off of each other and how they fill in spaces for the other. Um, when the choir takes full presence and alternates within itself, just everything in here, the layering of the melody writing and passing it along between instruments is so well done. Like, here's the thing, if you just remove the metal aspect entirely and use the strings, or maybe bring in some brass for those guitar breaks, this would still be a solid track. And I think that's what's really great about it, is that the music is solid. It could be arranged in any other way. We could easily extrapolate this to a different group of instruments, and I think it would still sound phenomenal. It just happens to be done with a symphonic metal adjacent instrumentation. The other thing we need to talk about is key and mode. A lot of this has those Middle Eastern vibes to it. As I've said, many times in the past, this is one of my favorite modes. It's called Phrygian, um, and they run with it. There isn't a moment of this track that does. Oh, wait, there is a moment of this track that doesn't feel Phrygian, isn't there? I don't know what they moved into, but I called it out when it happened. Um, and the song took on a very bright tone for, I don't know, 16 bars. We didn't really stick with it very long. I'm really curious what the purpose of this was. I think it was our first guitar break, possibly, within it somewhere. Um, like I said, I'm really curious what the purpose of it was. It feels completely out of place. It isn't represented anywhere else in the track, but it was neat. It was interesting. It caught my attention. It's like, hey, we're not just going to stay Phrygian the whole time. 99% of the time for sure, but yeah, look, we changed it up a little bit. Um, so yeah, that was an interesting moment, but I really enjoy the Phrygian mode. I think they do fantastic work with it. And primarily gets utilized in the chords from our string and choir, and in especially our guitar breaks. And we got to talk about those guitar solos, um, because I thought they were rather tasteful. We got the guitar break, which was this repeated section. We heard it at the end of the first structural loop. We heard it right before the guitar solo. It was the same idea. We have a harmonized guitar melody that takes the spotlight. I really enjoy this. It has nice flow to it, nice breathing. It follows a lot of the melodic writing that we've already heard in our choir. And then at the end of it, we seamlessly transition into a solo guitar sound. We lose that harmonized lower tone and we go into a shreddy solo. And while I'm not a huge fan of shreddy solos in a vacuum, I think it works really well paired against what we just heard, as it contrasts that dual sound to a singular mono sound, while also exchanging a lot of the melodic writing that breathes, that takes moments to rest and recuperate, and exchanges it, encounters it with this just raw speed until we get to the end of the track. So yeah, like I said, not usually my deal, but I think it works really well within this context. And the guitar really digs into that Phrygian sound more so than the rest of the song. It's basically a concentrated look on that mode, so it's really nice to also have that contrast as well. Yeah, I dug this. Not what I was expecting from Therion, but I might have a new fan now. Let me hit the lyrics and we'll see what's going on with this track. And once again, I am proving that I am a composer, a music analyst, and not a poetic analyst. I have no idea what's going on here. It's rather short. It does have an ABC concept. I do think that we can include the guitar break as a D, which follows the structure that I set out earlier. Um, Lyrically, though, breathing night born of might and astral. Breathing night born of magic and astral flight, wings corrode air of heaven that once was strong. That's the entire verse 1. Somebody is astrally projecting themselves across the planet, and the wings corrode air of heaven. Like, what is air of heaven that once was strong? I don't know. The chorus makes even less sense to me. It's very vague. Flock of Shayatin, fire of the wind, shadow on the wall. The post chorus, which both of these are sung by the choir. Oh, but our second chorus is not. We have a Thomas Vikstrom come in and sing with the choir in our second chorus. So that's interesting. I didn't catch that. There's also a second vocalist in here. Our verses are sung by the choir and Laurie Lewis. I wonder if that is the solo female vocalist I was talking about in the verse. I thought she was part of the choir, but maybe she's part of the band. See, this is where like skipping from the first album to the last is a little well, it's not necessarily disingenuous, but it can be misleading because we miss all of the steps in between when there could be personnel changes. Whether, you swap out a bassist, one bassist leaves and another one comes in, or you just bring in an entirely new instrument, like a second vocalist, or keyboards, or organ. I don't remember an organ or a keyboard in this track specifically, but they seem to be in the band now. Oh, actually, our keyboardist and organist are just one of the guitar players. So, okay, they're not. They didn't bring those in. There is possibly a dedicated violinist in here, though. Yeah, so like a lot of changes, a lot of expansion to just their core instrumentation as well. Anyways, back on topic here. The post chorus, after talking about, fire in the wind and shadow on the wall, says, "Invisible Marijin Min Nar, soon in the midst of our dawn will appear." So it kind of sounds like some sort of ritual to bring about this Marijin Min Nar. I don't know what it means. I tried to translate it. I didn't get anything out of it. Um, so yeah, I really have no read on these lyrics. They just kind of sound mystical. They sound fantastical. Um, and that's kind of it. That's my whole read on the lyrics. So if you have a perspective on them, please let me know. But these are my thoughts on the track from Therion, Marijin Min Nar. Let me know what you thought. Go ahead and put some stuff down in the comments if you enjoyed it, anything that stood out to you that you would like to add on to what I said, correct me on, anything like that. Just, go ahead and let me know. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu, has links to my music, the Discord server for the community, ways to support the channel, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, we have a special selection coming up next, and we also have a creator request today, which is pretty cool. I met this person on Mastodon. Just he was looking for a music server, I think, and I introduced him to the Discord, and then we started talking. And he's like, I told him about the creator request program, and he's like, "Yeah, you can check my music out." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." That's the whole point of this is to explore more music, especially ones from smaller artists, bands, composers, whatever. So, I'm excited about that. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.